Hi, my name is Gary Egan. I am a liver transplant recipient, grateful survivor, and this is my story. I was born in Dublin, Ireland in 1967, the youngest of 3 children. Had a great life over in Ireland, grew up there, spent my whole life there until I was 21, and came to New York while I was studying graphic design and business in the Dublin Institute of Technology. I came to New York on a J1 student visa. I first came to Pete's Tavern in 1989 and started working as a porter in the basement, and then got promoted to be a busboy, which I did for another 5 or 6 weeks, and then started to work as a waiter. Spent the whole summer here working as a waiter, then went back to Ireland, did my last year in college, graduated, and had really fallen in love with New York City and Pete's Tavern, and decided to come back for one more summer, which turned into 25 years. And in 1999, I met my lovely wife, Wendy, at the bar here.
Actually, it was 1997, honey.
97? No one's going to know that.
He was very charming. At that time, he loved to socialize, so he worked behind the bar on Friday nights, and I knew that, so I would come on Friday nights. And we started a friendship that blossomed into a fantastic romance and got married in 2000. It was in September of 2002. Gary and I were going to a wedding, and I actually noticed as he was getting dressed that his eyes were yellow.
What I was starting to notice, but never really acted upon it initially, was that my feet were starting to grow. I went to buy shoes for the wedding, and I went from a size 9.5, suddenly I was a 10.5. 6 months later, I was 11.5, and by the time I really knew I was sick, I was taking a size 14 shoe. Basically, I go to my internist, we do a battery of blood work, and he tells me my liver enzymes are a little high, and just to be careful, not to drink, watch the diet, try to be healthy, and we'll get this thing reversed, no problem. And what happened then was Wendy's family had booked a cruise over the President's week, and I decided not to go because just a little bit worried about my health, not drastically worried, but just in case something would happen. So for the weekend, I went out to my partner John's house, who lives out in Long Island. I decided I'd spend the weekend with him, and suddenly out of nowhere at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm screaming in pain on the couch, telling him to please call an ambulance and get me to the hospital. Of course, Wendy's cruising away, having a great time, and then suddenly gets this terrible news that I'm in, at the time, critical condition. They did not know what was wrong with me and feared every day that I would not make the next day.
When I first came back from the cruise and I went to see Gary after hearing the news, I see my husband lying in a bed, and he looked awful, in tremendous pain. I really didn't know what happened in 5 days of being away.
They tell me there's definitely a problem with my liver. They don't know what it is. The liver numbers are through the roof. All the numbers are sky high.
My goal was to get him somewhere where they can really do extensive tests and figure out what exactly is wrong with his liver. His internist is at Mount Sinai Beth Israel, where I work, and so we had him admitted, thinking it would be for a few days, which lasted about 2.5 months, 3 months on and off. Got him transferred to NYU, where everything just started to unfold from there.
Autoimmune liver disease is really something that can flare, attack you at any point in time. We got him over here. He had a lot of fluid. He was very yellow, confused. He was really dying. And
suddenly I'm sat down by a social worker, again, very sick at this point. She, as required, has to tell me what my odds of survival are. And my odds of survival are very low. I'm being put on the list for a transplant. Now I have to process that I probably will not live.
And because he has a rare blood type, a B blood type, the chances of acquiring an organ are slim.
So at this point then it suggested maybe that to have family members tested to see if anybody else has a B positive, which was actually very highly unlikely. And it turned out that my father, my brother, and my sister 4 of us out of 5 all had B positive blood types.
We were lucky enough to have a match, a good match, a healthy brother, a caring brother who wanted to donate.
My discussions with Jonathan about giving Gary part of his liver, the word no was never an option for him, but there are risks involved. And Jonathan just said, I know, but that's not going to stop me. And full speed ahead. Jonathan was there.
He never looked back. From the moment he was asked, he never looked back.
Living donation is an operation that requires 2 teams, 2 full teams of surgeons. So there are 2 surgeons in the donor, 2 surgeons in the recipient, and it's a long operation on everybody. And so I and Dr. Morgan were dedicated to Jonathan in order to take the graft out and prepare it. And then I took the liver into Gary's room where another team was waiting, and I helped with that team.
It was 14 hours later, Jonathan came back from surgery, and they were just wheeling him into the ICU of transplant. So it was about 2 o'clock in the morning that finally Gary made his way up. And this, again, started from 5 o'clock the morning before. About 2 or 2:30 that I finally saw him. They wheeled him up into the ICU, and I just had to look at him. And once I looked at him, I knew he was okay.
And so the new liver had to kick in, and then Gary had to wake up, and he was out of it pretty much for the first 3 or 4 days, and then gradually came back to be with us as the liver was regenerating.
I saw him once after the surgery. Just once he came to see me. It was very vague. The memory of it was very vague.
When Gary woke up the following week, Jonathan had already left. Jonathan did what he needed to do, and he was already on a plane back home to Ireland.
6 months after, just give me a second.
Gary spoke to Jonathan just about every day for a couple of months after, just to make sure they were both okay. And I believe it was like 6 months later, we went there, and boy, that was a reunion.
Yeah. It's very hard to describe how it feels when somebody has put their life on the line for you. And as happy as the reunion was, suddenly everything comes to mind as to the risks he had taken.
It definitely was a gift. A priceless one. True brotherly love.
Jonathan is my hero. To be able to give to your brother an organ has got to be the greatest gift.
The word has to get out there, and what the American Liver Foundation is doing for research, for donor awareness, it has to be done. It's so, so vitally important. I wouldn't be alive today if I didn't have my brother, and I just feel so bad for people who don't have brothers, family members, friends who are willing to do the surgery and to go through this tremendous operation